Alright, welcome to the very first episode of Under the Hood. I'm your host, Timothy Wrestler. Now, this is meant to be a series of educational videos for songwriters. In each episode, I'm going to take a look at the musical arrangement and the lyrical structure of a specific song. And I'll be looking at popular songs on the radio from a range of different styles, and also taking a look at some classic hits. Okay, now the song for this week is Uptown Funk by Mark Ronson and featuring Bruno Mars. Alright, let's look at the basic song form. You've got the intro, verse 1, pre-chorus, chorus, verse 2, pre-chorus and chorus, and then kind of have an ending vamp where you hear the same idea that you heard in the intro, and it goes on for a while. Then you hear the chorus one last time, and then there's an outro, very similar to the intro. Okay, now the intro has a simple, catchy vocal ostinato, kind of sung by a low bass voice, kind of in the style of Parliament Funkadelic and those types of bands. It's in the key of D Dorian, minor mode, and I'll play it here for you now. It might be up an octave since I'm playing it on my guitar. Okay, so that goes on for the entire intro, and since it's an ostinato, by definition it will be repeating itself really throughout the song. Now in the intro you hear hand claps on beats 2 and 4 for the whole intro, and in measures 5 through 8 you'll hear an electric guitar. They're using these 3-note funk voicings that are outlining basically a D minor 7 to a G7 progression. Now, in the tab below, you'll see the way I think they're playing it. Now, you've got the D minor 7, which is a D, F, C, and then the G7 is D, F, B. Okay, and it goes kind of like this. Then comes the verse, where you're just hearing the vocals and a real basic common drum groove, where you've got steady eighth notes on a closed hi-hat with open hi-hat on the and of beat 4. You got kick drum on 1 and 3, snare on 2 and 4. Then you've got the pre-chorus, which is maybe a little bit longer than what's typical. The vocals are set up in a call and response pattern, which really goes back to the earliest forms of the blues. In measures 1, 3, 5, and 7, you'll hear the bass playing these staccato eighth notes. It's pictured below. Sounds like this. Except there's a measure of silence after you play that. And then you got measures 13 through 16, which is just a chromatic climb, really. You're going an octave from D to D by half step, and it's a nice dramatic segue into the chorus. You got Alright, and then the chorus begins with the horns. The 16th note horns, very typical of this style of music. The chorus lasts for 12 measures, and you're going to hear the full band. You'll hear the guitar, some more slap bass, some more intricate drum patterns, and some fills. And basically the horns do what's pictured below for most of the chorus. Although I think in the beginning you're not going to see the first measure of what's written here. That comes in later. But I'll play the entire thing for you right now. Okay, now once you get towards the last four measures of the chorus, that's where Bruno Mars really shows off his vocal chops. The melody climbs little by little through a D minor pentatonic scale and finishes with a home run high D. Then when you get to the outro, it's pretty much the same as the intro, except for you have some other stuff going on, but it's you still have the ostinato. You have the same chord progression, same guitar and bass, and so that's pretty much it for the musical analysis. Now let's move on to the lyrical section. Okay, so here in the first verse, we're going to talk about the rhyme scheme and literary devices. So if you see an R, that means that later on in the verse, this word, this, is going to repeat itself. Okay, now X stands for a section that doesn't rhyme, and A stands for a section that would have a rhyme, like a perfect rhyme. Okay, now here you have A and A, which is cold and gold. Okay, and I wrote here exterior imagery. That is kind of describing what's going on around you. It's something that a lot of songwriters will go back and forth between exterior imagery and what I call interior imagery to create a nice contrast in the lyrical structure. Now, here's the next part of verse 1. Here you have that word this, which repeats. That's why there's an R here again. And here I wrote R2, R2 because them repeats. B and B. Now B is rhyme number 2 from the verse. Hood, good. Those rhyme. Okay, so you have then R3 is the third repeat, girls and girls, and then X for a section that doesn't rhyme. You still have a lot of exterior imagery, but you have what we call internal rhyme, where the rhyme is not necessarily at the end of the phrase. You have it inside here. Alright, here you have a lot of rhyming going on. We got stylin', whilin', livin', CCC, and you'll notice C is down here again with an asterisk. Now, what that stands for is assonance, which is a type of rhyme. It's not a perfect rhyme, but it's a rhyme nonetheless. That's when you've got the same vowel sound, and you got the I sound here on stylin', whilin', and kiss, so that you've got an assonance rhyme right there, and then you got D and D. That goes along with city and pretty, and then E and E chucks on with Saint Laurent. So there's lots of internal rhyming going on here. More exterior imagery, and that's going to contrast with the pre-chorus. The verse is a lot of exterior imagery, and then you're going to see the interior imagery once we get to the chorus, or the pre-chorus. Okay. So now we've got the pre-chorus. Got lots of repeats here. Okay, in fact, it repeats at the beginning of every phrase. I'm too hot, too hot, too hot, too hot. Okay, now That's a common rhetorical device known as anaphora, and you might find it in something like Dr. King's famous speech. That's probably the most famous example of that. Whereas he said, I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. I have a dream that on the red hills of Georgia. So you get the idea. But that's a very common tool used by songwriters, anaphora. Okay, now got call and response again. You saw that earlier in the verse. And I may have changed some of the words here, but you probably recognize what it is. And you got A, fireman, retire man. I guess that kind of rhymes. And then am is assonance, okay, the same vowel sound. And then you've got hyperbole here, which is kind of exaggeration for the sake of humor. Call the police and the fireman. Make a dragon want to retire man. All right. And like I said, here you're contrasting with the verse by using interior imagery rather than exterior imagery. All right. He's talking more about himself, the singer, because he's too hot. Now here's the second part of the pre-chorus. Here they're repeating a certain line 3 times, and then they repeat a different line 3 times. And then they have 2 parts that don't really rhyme. So that would be the X sections and then the repeated sections. Rule of 3, very common tool for songwriters. They'll say a specific line in the song 3 times. It's something I learned from Pat Pattison, professor of songwriting at Berklee College of Music. Then got the chorus. Okay, pretty much a typical earworm where they say the same thing over and over again until it's stuck in your head, and kind of like the song Happy. It's common with a lot of songs. And we heard Don't Believe Me, Just Watch in the pre-chorus as kind of an anticipated foreshadowing. Okay? Because the chorus really doesn't start until you hear the horns and the whole band comes in. Alright, moving on to verse 2. So you got stop, wait a minute. Now, that's what I call prosody. That means the lyrics and the music are working together in a very interesting way. When he's saying stop, so you could understand that in a lyrical context, but at the same time he's saying stop and the full band stops, and then for the verse it's just vocals and drums. So it has 2 meanings, and it's working. The lyrics are working with the music. Here we go back to exterior imagery again, describing what's around. And got a basic rhyme scheme, XA, XA. Okay, here you have assonance, not exact rhymes. Check and stretch have the same vowel sound, but are not perfect rhymes. We've got alliteration, lots of S's, sip, sign, stretch, and you've got more exterior imagery. Now, you've got here some more alliteration. You got show up, show out, smooth, Skippy, Harlem, Hollywood. Okay, the same first letter. And the rhyme scheme is A and A, that would be Mississippi, Skippy, and R, you got the word show, which repeats itself. Okay? And there's also simile here, smoother than a fresh dry Skippy. Another example of simile would be light as a feather. And that concludes our analysis of Uptown Funk. Uh, Hope you enjoyed, and look forward to our next video. Thanks.